failed to do anything. The United Nations failed to do anything. President Obama has the U.S. EPA now doing all the things that everyone else failed, but doing it successfully through the bureaucracy. And this is the way it works. Liberalism has so many options. The intellectual left have so many options using the power of the state. They put on the pretense that we have a choice. And we can be all cheering, oh, we defeated the cap and trade bill, the global warming bill in Congress. Oh, we defeated the United Nations. But yet it's still coming. It's still coming down the pike. They just keep coming, layer after layer, wave after wave of their nonsense. They don't give up. And we've got to raise this to a national dialogue. I'm disappointed so far in the alleged opposition party in Washington, the Republican Party, raising this as an issue right now. And you have people like Mayor Bloomberg, the former Republican in New York, bragging that they're stopping hundreds of coal plants and their alliances with environmental groups, and now the EPA is joining them. This is the lifeblood of our society. I would also argue people like John Holdren, even worse than openly calling for this kind of totalitarian things, is what he did in the 1970s. He opposed Norman Borlaug, the Nobel Prize-winning agronomist, the agricultural scientist, in his efforts to bring golden rice to Asia, which ended up feeding millions of people and brought people life and fed people and helped and support people that would not otherwise be alive today. This was John Holdren saying we don't want better agricultural practices. We don't want foods that resist pests. We don't want all these people eating and living because the earth can't handle it. Openly, nakedly anti-human agenda. And where is history record John Holdren versus the man named the late Norman Borlaug? John Holdren, once again, is a chump of humankind and science, and yet he's still feted.
Well, in the 70s, they said by 2000 we'd be in an ice age.
They said we'd be in an ice age. They said, we would have such massive famines from overpopulation. They live, and those predictions live to be laughed at. And as we've talked about, now the global warming alarmists have learned most of the dire predictions they make are long after the person making them will be dead. So in other words, if someone's 60 years old today, they're making predictions of the year 2075 long after they'll be dead. So they have learned their lesson to some degree. They try to make the predictions much further down the road.
All right. Well, let me just ask you this in closing. On the First Amendment issue, the fact that they're nakedly censoring more and more, not just calling for it, I think that shows how weak they are.
It does. They can't handle dissent or debate. Al Gore in 1992 declared debate about global warming over. Al Gore has never once consented to a debate. You have major scientists like James Hansen, who's never been involved in a climate debate. And all these guys, they claim there's no debate. They claim it's over. Michael Mann, the guy I mentioned previously, will not appear in any debates. Why? Because all the nonsense they spew would be destroyed within the first 5 minutes, and they'd be rambling incoherently, and they know that. So what they do is they try to suppress debate. This has been since the beginning. If you're an impartial viewer, don't know anything about the science, which side are you going to believe? The guy who's out there screaming, there's no debate, it's all settled, and all these people with huge credentials, Nobel Prize winners, former UN scientists, PhDs in chemistry and oceanography and climatology, all saying this is bunk, it's nonsense. And yet the people claiming it, the people that are funded with government blessing, won't debate them. This is why the public turns against them. They know it's nonsense. If you're going to buy someone's theory, you want to see the theory.
And they run around and lie. Just 2 years ago, they were still saying not one scientist disagrees, 100%. And it turned out the majority of those that had their name put on the UN thing as approving were just invited to the conference. It didn't mean they agreed with it.
And not only that, but they were anthropologists and sociologists. And it turns out that the entire report, it comes down to like 52 scientists, and give or take even less, depending on what part of the report on the sensitivity of whether CO2 really, the kind of global warming we should expect from rising emissions. It comes down to much smaller than that. And scientists at the UN have admitted that that's nonsense when they try to claim thousands of scientists have agreed. All that means is they participated in this giant report, but when in the report itself is just this big mess, but a close-knit group of 52, many of the ClimateGate scientists who reappear all over the place, came out and tried to shape the message that the science is unequivocal, and they actually had to agree line by line with UN bureaucrats and government leaders around the world. This is not a scientific process. One scientist from the UK said the United Nations is a political body masquerading as a science group. It's an abomination. It's the silliest thing you've ever heard for anyone to try to claim.
Well, I mean, look how obvious it is.
Abomination. It's quasi-religious, so I guess abomination would probably work there.
Well, exactly. I mean, you've got a global government body with a bunch of bureaucrats that want more funding saying the Earth's about to die, give us all the power or you're dead.
And we won't debate anyone. We won't allow challenges. And we find that I have a whole report on all the scientists that resigned. We had UN scientists who sit in at meetings and say, we're going to make this next report so alarming that people will have to act. And they come out and testify to this fact. These reports were written before they even met to write the reports.
But I mean, look at all their defeats. I mean, there's just so much points here. But I mean, look at how they said the Himalayas would melt, didn't happen.
Look at the climate vote today. From 5 years ago, the Arctic ice has now gained the combined size of the state of Texas and Oklahoma combined for the same date in 2007. That's how much expanded ice we're getting from the, quote, rapidly death spiral.
It was supposed to be all gone, right, by last year?
That's right. There were many predictions, 2010, 2012, 2014, that all Arctic ice. And now global sea ice is now greater than it was in the 1980s, before most of this hysteria started. In fact, it's greater today, this week, than it was in most of the years of the 1980s on this date. Global sea ice, if you combine the North and South.
Listen, folks, we better use the internet and free speech and defend it or lose it. ClimateDepot.com. Get that address out to everybody. Mark Moreno, thanks for joining us on short notice with this development, and we really appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you, Alex. We don't know if anyone will ever see this video, but we're still doing it.
Yeah.
Don't know if it'll make the light of day.
Well, they're the boss. I mean, they said so,
Yeah.
We both need to be locked up in a mental institution.
That's right. And imagine if the government gets into regulating the internet now. And this is a scary world. The internet's the last bastion of freedom we have, and it's horrifying to think. It's one thing to even have self-control, but now we're talking about there's all various plots that keep reappearing in the United States Senate and the House to try to regulate the internet, and it's very scary because that can be easily manipulated.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you.
All right, there goes Mark Moreno, ClimateDepot.com. Folks, this is not a game, and this is not a joke, okay? And I'm here to tell you, the enviro power grabbers could care less about the environment. They never talk about toxic waste dumping or other stuff that's going on. It's all about the carbon dioxide you're breathing or that you're exhaling. It's a total and complete power grab. And remember Al Gore with the fake graphic of the polar bear that couldn't swim when it's the greatest land animal swimmer, period. Or they always show the North Pole, the South Pole in the summer, which is the opposite. Whenever the Arctic is in winter, the North Pole is in summer. But the point is, they'll show a satellite image, and they'll show it in the spring and summer where every year it contracts. That's like the North Passage is available from the United States over to Russia or Canada over to Russia during the summer, but it freezes up during the winter. That's why they have icebreakers. The point is they prey on the public's interest and they say, public, since you're ignorant, we're going to show you in the summer it melting and say, look, it's melting, it'll soon be gone. They don't show you the rest of the satellite imagery that in the winter it goes back. This is what the ice caps do. And so they'll point a camera at glaciers collapsing into the ocean and say, look, they're collapsing, they're melting. That's what rain does on the North and South Pole. And then it builds up and pushes out and flows as ice flows towards the sea. And always during the spring and summer, the glaciers are falling into the water. But they say, look, it's collapsing in the summer. Look, there's sea lions on the rocks where it was ice. Give Al Gore money. Give Rothschild money. World government. Look, polar bears can't swim. They can only swim 200, 300 miles. They say the polar bears are almost all dead. I keep saying their numbers have doubled. That's a conservative estimate. In many areas, there's fivefold. Look it up. Look up polar bear numbers exploding. They are the biggest liars. I was in a pizza place a few years ago, and they had children's local art projects for the environment in the entryway to this pizza place in Port Aransas, Texas. I was down there at the beach. And it was all penguins crying because there was no ice left, and polar bears who were in the water and couldn't swim, who were drowned. And it was all these horrified children being terrified. And this is the type of garbage that we deal with. All right, that said, this is part of INFOWARS Nightly News that goes out to our subscribers, airs on some cable systems around the United States. We reach on the radio 3 million people a day, 15 million a week, all total with podcasts, YouTube videos, shortwave, XM. It's going to be hard for them to shut me down, but they're trying. And I'm going to take this video right now. We normally wait a day or so before we upload it to YouTube. And I'm going to upload this INFOWARS Nightly News special report right now. Because regardless of what you think about me and my views and my ideas, the fact that they're censoring the videos that we did and banning them and about to shut down our channel, the fact that they're doing this, and the fact that it's like the Soviet Union where some little commissar complains and they say, we agree, it's offensive. I can't even put videos up criticizing the TSA now. They take those down. You're like, well, go somewhere else. YouTube's over half the video views in the world every day. It's where the fight is. And it's a rigged game. Just like Ron Paul really won those first states, they cheated him. We're still winning with the moral authority, but we're not going to be here if you don't support us. I mean, if I even told you about the dirty tricks behind the scenes, you know, the stuff that goes on here, you wouldn't believe it. I don't spend my time complaining about what's going on behind the scenes here. The death threats, the slap suits, all of it. Because I expect that. I'm over the target. And let me tell you something. As I get more and more over the target, you know, my grandfather was, like so many other people's grandfathers, was in World War II. He always told my dad and my uncle, he said, oh, I was a cook in the Army Air Corps. And he was a cook after his 22 missions. That's true. But after he died, many years after he died, they finally got into the storage there at the old farmhouse, got in the attic, and there were his annuals and letters and medals and awards. Because, you know, to people that have actually been in a bunch of combat, it's something they don't want to talk about. They're not proud of it, even if it was for a good cause. And I just think about the fact that there's that old saying when you were going over Europe that you knew when you got over the factories, you knew when you got over the military, you know when you got over the forces that you were over them, because that's when you're getting the flak. The big anti-aircraft, toom, 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 shooting at you. And then flying through all that debris and metal. That's what flak does. It shoots up to the altitude of the aircraft, usually about 1,000 feet above, explodes with a bunch of shrapnel that's now moving at, 500 miles an hour. And then that just rains into the aircraft as they fly through it. And so it's not fun, but as we get more flak, it lets us know we're over the target. The issue is, though, we need support. We need you to buy war bonds. And war bonds here, we're not funded by George Soros and the New World Order. We're funded by you, the viewer, the listener, who we know the bankers are trying to impoverish. I've talked to Jim Tucker and others. And every year at Bilderberg, they throw fits. They say, how can there be 500 protesters outside when we're the middle of Switzerland, up in the mountains? It must have cost them thousands of dollars to get here. Shut down the economies now. Make them so poor they can't protest. Feudal lords, going back thousands of years, get that. Make people so poor that they're so busy trying to get an existence, claw out an existence, that they can't resist you. And that's what this is all about. That's what globalism and fake environmentalism and eugenics and Agenda 21 is all about. Maury Strong says, post-industrial world make you so poor that you can't resist them. I understand that. That's why we're fighting to cut taxes. We're fighting to put fair tariffs on China that the globalists have teamed up with to shut down our country. That's why I'm working so hard to defeat these people and risking my life, because I realize there's no future if we don't beat them. But when you do buy the high-quality water filters at